My name is Siyanda Mbele. I'm founder and creative director of Pinda Furniture and Interior Design. Pinda is a Zulu word for again. So what I realized as I was starting up in my career is that everything started happening like a repetition. So there was a repetition of growth. There was a repetition of understanding the business and the market, and I was continuously learning and growing. So the name seemed fitting for what was happening to me and the business at the same time. So that's why I decided with the name Pinda. And then when you spell the name Pinda in Zulu, it's P-H-I-N-D-A. So I decided to take out the H for many reasons. One, because of aesthetics. The H, when it's out there, it just looks cleaner. And then also my surname Mbele, it is spelled M-B-H-E-L-E, but with our family we don't have the H, but we still spell it as Mbele. So there's no absence or silent anything. So it's kind of like links up the relationship between my surname and my company name.
When did you start your business? Did you start it while studying or after graduation?
I always knew that I wanted to start a business. I think when I was doing my first year at varsity at DUT, Durban University, I think at that time I realized I am not quite 9-to-5 material, and I kind of want to do my own thing. You know, I wanted to shape something different than what was already there. And then I think when I started my first year, that's when it really made sense. It's okay, cool, this is what I want to do. And I started strategizing on how I'm going to get this thing going. So that's when I started focusing on designing objects and furniture products, you know. As I was studying interior design, I was more focused on singular items within the interior space. Even when the lectures were like, guys, please holistically think about the whole environment, I would be like, yes, I'll nod yes, but I know I'm not going to do that, because I want to singly look at the detail of the object and how actually this object can become a character in the space. And so that's what I started doing from first year, second year, and third year. Third year, then I heard about emerging creatives at Design Indaba. And then I knew instantly that was a channel that I could possibly take to basically launch my career. So I started getting very obsessed with the emerging creatives, and I applied. I got declined the first time. I was heartbroken. I was moody for a day.
You mentioned that when you were studying, you became quite obsessed with designing from like a singular item as opposed to a bigger vision. Was there anything in particular that you were drawn to designing a single element within the interior space?
Yeah, I got drawn to tables and just the idea of how they bring people together and how they become conversation pieces. So I think that became an obsession with how can we can still add innovation to something that has been done so many times, you know. So I think also my approach is always just to challenge what is already there, and when you're challenging something that is proven to work and you want to add in your own twist, you know, there's a lot of ups and downs until you get it right. So for me, I kind of was prepared for all of that. So yeah, I was kind of obsessed with also just taking items that people use every day and then kind of like add a design element into it that is a little bit unexpected.
And then the table, was it from an idea or rationalizing it as a gathering for family or gathering for society or at a bigger space or culturally? What really informed this interest in a table as an item of interest that gathers people around it?
I think for me it was the gathering of people, and also I remember when I was doing my last year in varsity, that the industry and what we have learned and all the knowledge we have learned in university was mainly focused on Western influences. And I kind of wanted something, an object that could allow me to express my cultural influences that I wanted to bring in. So, and at the time, the table just felt like it's the perfect object to kind of merge the two and clearly illustrate what I wanted to showcase and design. So I didn't even toss a coin and say, oh, is it a lampshade? It's gonna be this, it's gonna be that. It just happened. It was just like something I gradually fell in love with. Like when I'm sketching, it was just like I kept on sketching the same thing over and over, and then it just stuck. And then it was like, okay, cool. Then that means this is it. This is what I should do. It wasn't anything calculated. It was just something that I kept on falling back on every time I opened the sketchbook and I would draw something. It'll just morph itself to the first thing that I'd drawn before and before and before. And I realized it's okay, sure, this is it. And I think also because I was a little bit not sure about designing chairs at the time because of ergonomics and making sure lumbar support and all of that. So I was a bit like, oh, okay, let me hold on with the chairs. And at the time also people were like, chairs have been done so much. You can't design a new design for chairs. Everything has been done. What are you going to bring in new? So, and then then why are we still studying and still doing this? Then if everything has been done, then what's the point of calling ourselves designers if we just, I don't know what else, we must then use another word. So I think it was that whole, I remember that even when I first heard that statement that everything has been done, that bore me the first second I heard it, and I was like, then what's the point? What are we doing here? So I also wanted to showcase that everything has been done, yes, in the Western, but here where we are in Africa, not everything has been done, and we have that opportunity to tap into African history and bring it to surface. And we have the opportunity to do that through design. It doesn't have to be through literature. You don't have to go to a museum, library, get a book only. You can also now get it through design. So it was that whole angle that I was taking.
What informed your decision to be a designer and have interest to go to university to study interior design? Was it something that you recognized in your youth growing up, or did you look up to somebody? What made you decide that design is it for me?
Growing up, we used to draw a lot of cartoon figures with my friends in primary. So we drew a lot of Dragon Ball Z, Pokemons. We drew from cartoon figures. It then became buildings. We started drawing architecture, and my other friends would be like, oh, well, I will be an architect because I draw houses the most. The person who drew cartoons the most would be like, oh, I'm going to be a graphic designer. And we'll actually tell each other, like, oh, you will be a graphic designer. And be like, you'll be an architect because that's what you gravitate towards naturally. At the time, I didn't know nothing about interior design. I didn't even know it existed. So I was drawing cars at the time. So I was obsessed with cars. I started tracing cars. My cousin Kulego was the one who taught me how to draw. I remember back then, Umlazi, my dad was leaving to go to a party. And before he left, he saw my cousin drawing, and I was just sitting on the side looking at him draw, because that's what I used to do, just look at him draw, because he was like an amazing illustrator, drawing guy, like amazing artist. So, and then my dad is like, yo, can you also give him a piece of paper and a pen so that he can draw also? And then just teach him how to draw, and then he went about his life. And then he could give me the paper, and then he told me, it's okay, cool. The first thing that you need to do is you need to trace, because you don't know how to draw yet. So pull up the magazines. We had those club member magazines with shopping what, those old magazines. So like trace whatever you like in that magazine, just put the thing over and then press as hard as you can so it transfers to the paper, and then you can then go over with the pencil once you draw, and you can do whatever you like after that. So that was my teaching, my informal teaching, which is kind of like formal maybe. And then I went from tracing, and then I started drawing and looking. So I would look at an item and I started drawing it. And then from then on, I was like, no, I need to challenge myself even more. Let me create my own car designs. So then I started taking maybe a car shape of a certain car brand, and I would add my own headlights, and I'll put my own headlights, I'll put my own rims. And then I started creating my own cars, and then I wanted to be a car designer. But I was like, and I remember there was a show, Zola 7, someone also in the country wanted to be a car designer. They couldn't do it in those 3 days. So I was like, okay, this is now out the window. Because I was like, how am I going to go to Germany to study this? This is now out of reach. So and then I went to high school, went to a technical high school in Umlazi called Umlazi Comtech. I actually didn't even know the school existed. We had driven past that place so many times. I'd never even looked to the left to see there was a school there. Until we went for the interview. We woke up on a Saturday and my aunt was like, yo, you're going to an interview. I'm like, what? She's like, get dressed, you're going to an interview. Got dressed, got to an interview. A bunch of kids were there, did an interview, got into the school. And I didn't, things happen because I don't think they were aware that I wanted to do technical stuff, but they knew I love arts and drawing. So I think they were just looking for a good school, but it turned out that good school was specifically a technical school. So I got there, and it was really cool to see there's other kids like me, And then we got there, studied mechanical, when you have to choose a subject at grade 10. I chose mechanical because I was still like, maybe I might go to Germany. So I studied mechanical. I did well for, I think maybe grade 10, I did well. And then after grade 10, I realized that something's off. I realized this is a little bit too technical. So it's not really what I wanted to be. I wanted to be more creative. And I didn't choose art. There was an art option and I didn't even choose it. And I wanted that. So come matric, also my aunt again gave me a CEO. So like, fill this up, I'm gonna take it on Saturday. So choose where you want to go. And then I filled it up, and everything I filled, I think there was marketing at UCT. I don't know why. But I like strategizing in marketing, because I'm also doing that now in my business. I've never outsourced that marketer. I've never got a marketer. I do that by myself. But I've always been intrigued by that. Even I have friends who do it. I think they are my friends because they are in marketing. and then I did jewelry. I think I entered jewelry. I entered architecture. I entered graphic design. Obviously, UCT is gonna throw me out the window. So they're like, no, you're taking big chances here. So, and then graphic design and all the other design I applied for, they were like, come for an interview. I went for graphic design. I was convincing myself that I really want to do this. And then I did interior design. I remember the day of the interview, I took my dictionary and I paged through what is interior design, and I looked for the definition of what interior design is. I went to the interview, and then I passed the interview.
So where's your cousin now, Nkudileko?
My cousin is now staying in Ndwedwe. He didn't follow the arts at all. He literally abandoned it. I think he just treated it like a hobby. He didn't see, because also at the time it all depended on what we were exposed to. And at the time, it made sense to be, we were in that phase of engineering. So you need to, hence even me choosing mechanical, because it was like a safer, even if I don't go and do art, I will still be a mechanical engineer. So he did electrical engineering. So when he did that, the whole drawing thing kind of like fell off, Yeah. So, and that's what happened to a lot of people also, a lot of my friends who were way better than me actually, and which is funny now because they remind me that, listen, we are still better than you, we design better than you. So I think I was just the one who took the bait and ran with it.
And your aunt now, having been one of the people through your journey who had the eye, who noticed, who nurtured you, who paved the way for you, who helped you. What does she say now about your career trajectory? When you speak to her, do you get a sense of like she had a knowing that this could become something, or she was just being an aunt doing aunt duty?
She's always been like a mother than an aunt, you know. So I think for her, looking now, because they really don't understand how the industry is like and how it works like, you know. The most important thing for her was that I'm happy. Because even my late grandfather, when I told him I want to study this, he was kind of set me down and he was like, I hear you don't want to do engineering when you go to university. And I was like, yeah, I don't want to do it. And he was like, are you sure? And I was like, yeah. He's like, are you sure? Sure. I was like, yes, I am. And then he was like, okay, cool. So if you're sure, then let's go with it. So for them, I think for my family, it's always about if they can physically see that I'm happy, then they're good. You know, they're good with just seeing me being happy.
And then Siyanda, what would you say, what are some of the pain points of trying to work at a slower pace, given that everything today operates so quickly?
You know, everything is so fast now. You need to learn quick and do quickly. The thing is, there's so many different aspects because it's like a domino effect. If you delay on one, it could lead to delaying other things. You know, there's multiple things integrated into creating a design. You know, it's not just you. You know, you need to. So I think for me personally, I learned the hard way. Meaning the hard way, like financially, because that ends up becoming the financial implication where you can't deliver in time. Relationships are then have to be amended or they are broken, you know, and also just dealing with the fact that you let a customer down, and which essentially means you let yourself down. So having to deal with that, and I think the best thing is just to learn and try and track where things went wrong, and then take responsibility and accountability, fix what you can, fix what you can't fix, and then just move on and just try and do better the next time. And then I think also what leads to things like that is lack of self-belief that you can actually execute things. So that's why sometimes things move so slow. It's not maybe, for me personally, it's not just that you don't have, or I don't have the information. The information is there. Like even our cell phones, you can Google search whatever you can find. So it was a point of just not trusting yourself in the decision that, okay, cool, if I choose this route, the outcome will be like this, you know. So sometimes even people say that it's things that happened or someone said in your childhood that make you second guess yourself so much that you can't execute quicker and learn things quicker and move on. Or same thing with attaching yourself to certain things. Sometimes you know when things go wrong, you tend to attach to the things that went wrong and label yourself as maybe like as a failure, as, oh, maybe I shouldn't do this, why am I even doing this in the first place? So it's a lot to do with self, and more than anything.
You had some opportunities that made your journey progression go a little bit quicker, in a sense that you went to graduate school. In your third year, you started your business, and then you had the opportunity to go to Design Indaba, which is also like an industry platform, major platform that also awareness, people are aware of what you do, and you have to be good to be in those platforms, and you were good, and that's why you were there. What would you say prepared you as a young mind of that age at that time of your life to understand the business of design?
I think it was probably how my grandparents raised us, especially my grandmother, because she was the one who taught us to challenge things every time. She literally, our chores, everything was just ran on a clock. It was clockwork. So I take everything that I do from her and I implement it. So she always had this mindset that she'll always say to us, you know. So even when I got into business, it was like, I'm not gonna allow this thing to defeat me type thing. I can do this. but I was so scared at the same time. But also the vision in my mind that I had, seeing this thing come to life, was way more exciting than the fear and the actual process of how things are going to play out. Because I hadn't figured that out. It's how are things actually going to happen when I say, okay, cool, I've applied, they've accepted me. Then what's going to happen next? So I didn't care much about that. I saw the end, and I was like, okay, I'm going to try and navigate how to navigate to the end. And that's where my family was the most supportive. And that's, I think it was that support system that kind of made me dream and realize that I can do this. It was because I know I had that support system.
How did you learn to separate yourself, the being, and the brand, and the business? Because they're all rooted in you.
Yeah, I think it takes a little bit of time, and things going left and right for you to realize it's okay, I need to separate these things. But in terms of even like separating business accounts and personal accounts, that was something I'd seen on TV being said. And so I was like, okay, cool. So I need to get my own account and the business to get its own account. But even when business runs, everything goes like this. Money from that side goes there, and then this one goes there. And then in terms of a brand, for me, I was more focused on the work and trying to make things better than actually think about it as a brand. Even I think till today, I'm not so much about the brand. I'm more fixated about the engineering, the engine of the business, and how the business is going to run, and how things need to be more efficient. You know, people need to get what they want. So I think even now I'm not more into the brand. I think the brand kind of morphs itself based on the way we conduct ourselves in the business. So that becomes then the brand is the outcome of our actions. Not to see we are specifically waking up in the morning to build a brand. So it's just like it's the habits, the things we do. The minute 8 o'clock hits to the minute 5 o'clock or 12 at night or whatever time, the actions are the brand. And then so taking also, I realized also when media started attracting, there was curiosity, because at first it was just the object, it wasn't me. So there was that fixation of, okay, who is this person? So I treated it in the beginning as a curiosity, so I started doing my own pictures. I started taking my own pictures, and for like studio shot pictures, you look good, you're standing like this, and then the product is there, because I've seen that being done. So I'm like, okay, maybe this is just the channel, But media in SA, then they take that and they start creating a persona. They start to then request more about the person and less about the product, and so I was able to see it's okay, now people are starting to request more about me. This was not created for me, it was about the business. So then I could say, I want to cancel this opportunity out because it's more focused on me, and I want to bring this one up because it kind of balances the two, me and the business, or it balances the business more.
It sounds like you had a great support system from like a family level. And I wanted to find out, when you got into business, were there people there who helped you along the way to get this machine running? Also taking to note that you had a level of high consciousness of seeing things and applying them to your personal instance or business instances. Was there somebody else who helped you along the way?
I've been very fortunate from the get-go. There were people who supported, who were readily available to help, to give out whatever advice, knowledge, help wherever else they could. So I've never been short of that support, and I think also because people saw the hunger in me, And also because I'd self funded for quite a while. So when someone self-fund and comes to you with a business, whatever, you can see that person is serious because they're putting their money in it, and they are building something. So I think that's why it's made everything slightly easier for me to attract the help, is because they're seeing what also I'm putting in there and the work that I'm putting in. So then they could also kind of see themselves a little bit in me when they also were starting out. You know, there's a list. I don't even want to mention names because I'll forget others and mention others. So there's been a list of people who've been very instrumental, companies, people also, till today. Like some people I've been in contact with since the day I started until today. We are still, you know, talking and doing business. Some people I've met along the way, some have fallen off, but I also see myself in them, which makes the relationship even better, you know, and which I think has maybe sustained the help even more, because even with people that I regard as my mentors, we've never actually sat down and discussed mentorship with them. It kind of just naturally happened that when I'm about to release a design, I show it to them and I'm like, have a look at this, what do you think? And then they have their 2 cents and I go, okay, tweak this, take this out, this is it, this is what sells, it doesn't sell, this is not going to move. So I've had that opportunity to have people that I call and be like, how do I price this? You know, how do I begin to get this object to this, out of the country? You know, like I'm not short of people to call. In terms of that, I've managed to keep those relationships.
You mentioned something that stuck, and the word that you use is hunger, and you can call it by any other name, whether it's curiosity, excitement, eagerness, when you start or begin anything. How were you able to protect yourself when you're being put in compromising situation that you didn't want to do, or things that would have compromised your design elements?
Some situations, they are quite transparent, that you could see with this is a lot of compromising, and then some not so much. So sometimes you see after the thing is done and you're like, oh, I don't think this is going to work for me. And I've done work where I was like, oh, maybe like brand partnerships, where I'm like, this doesn't really talk to the same thing that I'm trying to do. But sometimes I've taken stuff like that because I needed money. You know, let's just be honest, I needed that cash to inject into my business. So when that opportunity comes, I was like, okay, cool. You want me to post this, or you know what I mean, be an ambassador for this? Okay, cool, let's do that. But what then I've learned about that it's very transparent for people to see. There's a disconnect between my company and the other company I'm linking up with. So they can see it's just a transaction. Né? So now once I've realized that, I've realized that it's very important for me to make sure the brief and what we stand for also basically meets together, and also they can tap into my market, I can tap into their market, our markets could collide, and we could grow. You know, there's a beautiful part of the unknown. So, and that's the thing with hunger, when you're accepting so many things also, it's the unknown. And sometimes when you reject things, you feel like you're missing out on everything. Maybe that opportunity was the one that was going to take you to the next level. So then at first I was accepting, I think for the first 2-3 years, I was saying yes to almost everything. I didn't turn anything down, you know, until it got to a point when I said like, okay, cool, wait a minute. I'm literally exhausted, physically exhausted. So there must be an imbalance in this equation. And then you maybe do a project and you're like, this doesn't say anything about what I'm doing or what I even went to school for. But I said yes to it because there's that fear that this project could potentially be, it's the unknown of this. What if this is what takes me to the next level? Because maybe you'd seen someone who is at a higher level do it, but it doesn't necessarily mean it is in line with what I do.
And then as somebody who works within the design fraternity in our continent, what is your understanding of how do you define African luxury?
I think also with African luxury, if I look at Zulu, like Zulu beadwork for an example, the way that is made, it is what fashion people call couture. It is definitely a high-end, high luxury, simply just based on the material itself, which is the bead. The way it is already, and the way it is all manufactured and made, handmade, delicately, and there's a lot of maths involved. There's a lot of balancing of colors and patterns in there, and making sure there's representation. So already that foundation already is luxury. I think when we say luxury, we automatically think these big Italian brands and French brands, and we kind of want our African luxury to somewhat mirror that, but we need to be in our own space and realize that what we have is already luxury. We can develop it further to make it even more luxurious than what it is now. We can package it more. We can develop the objects, the raw materials, to make them more luxurious, but the heritage that is in there already, that is a luxury on its own, So I think we also don't see that. We want to see the same silhouette as the big French luxury brands, and then the minute our African brand mimic that, then we want to call it high luxury, but already we are sitting on luxury.
When you are designing or creating a piece, do you create it from ideation, thinking that it's going to be a luxurious product, or you're designing a product, then in the process it lends itself to be something that gets placed within the luxury bracket that has been done by an African in Africa, or from the beginning you go, it's going to be an African luxury product?
I think I don't recall ever sitting down and be like, yo, I'm making something expensive today. People are going to pay. I've never started sketching and be like, yeah, 10,000, 50,000, 100,000. I've never. No, that's never the case. I think it is the idea first, the design, and then the execution. So production determines the price. So it's never like I sit back and I want to create expensive things or cheap things or whatever the case is. It is dictated by how intricate the design is, how much material will be required for that design, how intricate it is, and then that basically lends the design where it's going to be placed in terms of, is it going to be high-end, a mid-range product. So it's never like a sit down and discussion about we're gonna make it $1 million. No, it's not that.
Yeah. And then generally, what is your design process like?
The process is normally, it differs. So sometimes naturally I would see a pattern and I would be drawn to it, so it will keep ringing in my mind and I'll start sketching an idea. But every time when I sketch, I already have an object that I want to sketch, whether it's a pendant or a chair or a table, and then I design according to basically the specification. But the process is quite fun, it's very liberating. A lot of pieces of papers everywhere. I'm just sketching and having fun, the most important thing, and erasing and putting back on some stuff, taking things out, putting back them, adding more, taking things out. It's just like this continuous process of trying to get the product to a very good place where it's, number one, innovative, it's design, also it's functional, it's beautiful, also it's quite cost effective. So all these kind of different things, you want to kind of like smash them together so that you can create a product. So process is normally like that. Before, when I was studying out, so it was more about what's going to get me attention. So how am I going to stand out? How from the other designers who are already there. And then every time when I design something and the silhouette starts to go towards an existing designer who's already there, then I start switching it up to bring it back to my style. Yeah, and sometimes I'll see an already existing object that is already there, and I'm like, okay, cool, this design is really cool. And then I can use that object as inspiration to create my object based on that.
Do you usually see color or silhouette first? Or what do you see first?
I see silhouette. There's something so charming, and just the form. As I'm like form obsessed. So the geometry of it needs to be there. And then the color is something that I add on, whether it is something I want to convey, like tell a story about a certain color code relating to a certain culture and what it represents, or it's just that a client requested that specific color, or I think that this color would work best, or also I try also to stay on trend and see which color is kind of like color of the year. Do I want to bring that color into the product so that also when people search the products, oh, color of the year, my products also come up. So strategically thinking about that, also not forgetting the marketing aspect of it. So there's multiple things that I do depending on which outcome I want.
How do you fuse your culture and heritage into your design work?
That's very easy. You know, I'm Zulu, so we have a lot of traditional ceremonies that we do at home, and relatives, extended relatives, neighbors, everybody. And when attending those gatherings, it is literally like the best experience. It's the best time ever. You know, the whole family's together, stories are shared, and what I've realized with these stories are now being missed. You know, with the younger generation, with the shift more into Western, so a lot of things culturally are being missed. So I saw the opportunity to basically infuse culture in a design, and it can be also a talking point in the same way when we have traditional ceremonies. The biggest talk during that ceremony is the actual ceremony taking place, what's going to happen first, second, who walks where, who dresses how, who's responsible for this, and what's your role in this, and what you need to do, and how you show respect for people who are there, even for ancestors and all of that. And I found it quite moving that I can also introduce that into a design also, because it's best shown in film also, but I wanted to show it in design. We can have a coffee table that basically has traditional symbols that represent maybe a male and a female, and you can start to talk about that. So the object itself can be a conversation piece where it's like, yeah, cool, that's a nice engraving on that unit, but that engraving actually means that now this and this has happened in the Zulu culture. Yeah, well, so now you're starting to teach the younger generation and also add pride, because then if it's in your home, then there's a lot of pride for the things we put in our homes in any way. So it's beautiful. It's also educational piece. It's a very bespoke piece also. Also, I wanted to add my point of view on the South African design industry. So I wanted to add my 2 cents also there.
Having to choose between the three, what would you say is the most fulfilling thing about the work that you do? A, coming up with the vision ideation. B, creating and completing the idea that you visualized. Or C, selling the idea that translated into a product or a design.
So which one is the most
fulfilling?
Sure, I think. Did you mention that when the client is happy?
No.
Was that that when the client is happy? When the client is happy, that's the most rewarding thing ever. When they call you and they're like, this is everything I've ever wanted. I didn't even know that I wanted it. you know, and that is so fulfilling. It's so rewarding, you know. I think it is. And also all those things that you mentioned, they play a certain role also, because once you've finalized the design on paper and I draw it up and it looks proper, and I'm just like, yes, finally. Especially with my chairs, the recent chairs I just released, it was a scary start, because I was like, I want to get this right. And then once the form started taking shape, I was like, whew. Because it literally took me, a friend of mine told me to design chairs beginning of 2018. And I finalized the design in June in 2019. You know, so I only took it serious in 2019, whereas I literally put pen and paper. That's when I actually started. But the idea has been lingering in my head for a couple of years, and then sat down and drew, and that on its own was so rewarding. And then people receiving that sketch and that 3D object design on computer, receiving it as an actual product, also that serves another validation also. But I think when the client is happy, yeah.
Cultural radar, what is moving the needle right now and hitting the cultural nerve?
I'm not sure if I'm going to answer that correctly. If we're looking at African cultures, Ndebele culture, in terms of it being visible in the design industry globally, they've been number one. And we can say basically Mam Esther Mahlangu and the entire Ndebele tribe played a huge role in that awareness, which kind of opened the gates for the world to kind of see actually there is something there that we need to look into. Also, it gave us that opportunity to explore in our own culture, because we saw it happening there. We saw what it can move at a design level. Yeah? So I think right now people are conscious, and the consciousness is rising, which is amazing, because we're seeing a lot of designers who design African influenced design being in the industry, in the business for quite a number of years, you know. So it's not like a one-hit wonder. They have one product and then they're out because it's not sustainable. So the fact that a lot of designers who design African design products, not specifically in what culture or aesthetic, that they are still in business for quite a number of years, that already shows and people are aware and they want the product. What I've realized though in terms of that is that we, as the designers creating these African influence designs, we need to do a lot of educating people of why it's necessary. Because, you know, looking at our history, a lot of it was erased and looked down upon. So now we're flipping the page and actually saying, no, it's not that way, it's the other way around. So can you please revisit who you are? Because I think the minute we are all in tuned with who we are definitely going to see the need in having all of these products, in having all our shopping malls with South African brands. The fact that all the shopping malls have foreign companies and we find that acceptable is still quite weird to me. The fact that we walk into all these malls and there are 90% imports, and that's okay. So in the future, we need to really start to work on ourselves. Each person realize their value in their culture. The minute that hits, then the decision to purchase, it's not now, you're not purchasing an African inspired what you're now purchasing a design that you love, and that's it. Yeah.
If you're not doing what you're doing today, what would you do? Do you have any other dream jobs or career outside of the design industry?
I do. I have a lot. DJing, for one. DJing. I think I have a really good ear for good music. You know, all genres. That's a great thing about me. Look, all genres, from Maskandi to jazz to everything. Definitely would like to art direct, you know, get into production also, like some film, like short film, not even like some motion picture. Let's just put it like that. Because even when I'm busy building websites, I was thinking I want the first page to be some movement. I want a bit of motion in there. I can't think of anything else. Maybe not car design. No, I'm off that. I'm off. I would like to design some shoes. I like to design some eyewear. And then I will expand to cutlery gradually, because I'm seeing already that is starting to happen. I'll expand to, I would love one day architecture will be beautiful to make also, yeah.
What do you know now that you didn't know then that you wish somebody told you?
I wish somebody said, just believe in yourself more, and and this thing is not going anywhere. Take your time, learn, and then execute. No one's going to take a career away from you, because I was so in such a huge rush, thinking I was going to be phased out. I don't know by what or by who, and then you realize it's no. I created and I can end it. So, and then I think just the self-belief part. You can actually pull this off. I wish that validation came in sooner.
What is your daily prayer?
Besides money, to be content. I think so. I think to be content. When I get to that state of mind or state of being, when I'm just like, oh yeah, okay, I'm good. I think that's so cool. Yeah.
Is love a feeling or a choice?
Love a feeling or a choice? It is a feeling that you choose, maybe. Because when it comes to love, there's a lot of vulnerability that has to happen. There's a lot of being exposed to elements that you are trying to protect yourself from, that you don't even know whether you're going to get them or not. So it's definitely a choice to go and partake in it, and just decide you're gonna love yourself and love the other. Yeah.
What do you wish for yourself?
Oh wow. Okay. Besides a G-Wagon, I would say contentment, being happy, and also being all of that. Also having achieved all the things that I set out to do. Because I feel like if you set out things and achieving them, it literally starts to build you as a person, and you start to become like a man of your word type thing, and it enforces power also to know that you can create things, you can make things happen. So yeah.
How do you define success for yourself?
At first I thought it was a lot of money when I started out. And then I realized that wasn't the case. I think also success is just like doing the things, executing and finishing things. Just purely finishing things, somehow that is success, because to get to the finish line, there's a lot of things that you have to do to get there. So to follow through with all the things that has to happen to get to the finish line, I think just finishing things is somewhat success. Like waking up and making your bed, the things you sleep at night and you think about, I'm going to go to the gym at 5. Even if you didn't go at 5, but you walked in at 6 or 7 or at 4, still on the same day, so things like that.
Do you worry about money?
A lot. because things don't happen without it. We mustn't be like, money. No. Things don't happen if you don't have it. So it's important to have a healthy amount of it, and know how to use it, and know how to put it in the right places so that it serves you, so that you can build the legacy you want to build. It's quite necessary to have it.
Yeah. Having been working in the industry of design for an amount of time that you have, how would you define design?
Wow, that is so shush. I would say design is solving a problem. Number one, that's the crucial part, because it needs to serve some sort of purpose. There needs to be some sort of function element in it. So I think once the problem is solved, and then it addresses a certain market, and people respond to it, I think that's design. It's sort of like you innovate to create design and solve problems. You know, it might not be major problems, but it could be just something that enhances one's life.
And what would you say is the one problem you intend to solve with your design work that you can think of right now?
Definitely make people more proud of their culture, and make them more aware of their culture, and also revive culture and restore and keep it going, because it is identity, you know. So it also identity enforces a sense of belonging, you know. There's nothing worse than not feeling like you belong somewhere, you know. So I want people to find themselves within the work, that sense of who they are, you know. Because with us, it doesn't necessarily, as Africans, it doesn't necessarily have to be like, I'm Zulu, so I understand a Xhosa inspired design, you know. I can be, you know, Zulu and also gravitate towards a design from a designer in Lagos that represents their culture, you know, because we still have those similarities also.
And where in the world or in your work do you feel that sense of belonging you speak of?
Where in the work I feel the sense of belonging?
Or in the world?
In the world.
Or in your work, where do you get that strong sense of belonging?
When I do my research and then I find the information, and then it kind of connects something back in my childhood, where maybe I saw the beadwork colors, because we used to wear those beadworks growing up, and then when I start to connect that with my childhood, and I'm reading about it, and then it start to tell me things that I took for granted because I just saw beads. So the minute when I realized it, I'm bringing that to the surface, you know, because there are people who are probably like me who didn't know. The fact that I'm bringing this to the surface, then that's when the sense of belonging starts to come in. We'll say, oh, okay, cool. Because now I'm collecting tribes of people, and I'm like, okay, cool. This is your tribe. This might be interest to you also, and for people who might not even think they are interested in it, you know. So the sense of belonging also happens where other people outside who are not necessarily interested in design, they start to relate to it, and they start to pinpoint similarities. And I've had those conversations with people where they're like, oh, even, you know, in my culture this and this happens. So that's when I know. Yeah.
At what stage of your life, of your career, did you have that sense of knowing or a full confidence that, you know what, I am actually good at what I do?
Mm-hmm.
Was it coming through looking at your work, or your work that you've created being sold, so that's a form of affirmation?
Mm-hmm.
Or was it from your support system of your family, or was it at school, or was it at industry platforms, maybe like exhibition, where you got the sense of, I'm good at what I do?
Yeah, it's a mix of almost everything that you've mentioned, because even friends at school, they'll be like, yo, are you killing it? You're killing it. And then you're like, yeah. But growing up, you're always told to be humble. So even when you want to say, yeah, I'm the guy, you have to kind of like not say that. You kind of like have to suppress it and kind of nod to yourself. But that on its own, I tend to find that has a little bit of danger in it. Because the more that suppression lives in you, you literally can not even validate yourself at some point because you keep oppressing it when the compliments are coming in. So I think when I started drawing cars and I started designing my own cars in primary, that's when it was like, yeah, okay, we can definitely go ahead with this. And I was so sure, at that time, I was like, okay, cool, this is definitely it, based on friends, you know. And the most validating part is when people who are not necessarily interested in arts or design and whatever, who are just like, yeah, no, this is the real deal.
I am most happy when
I'm at home in my bedroom.
I believe in
the universe. Yeah, because I speak a lot to the universe. Like when I want things done, actually, it's the most weirdest thing ever. I can basically say, Guti, okay, this year I want to achieve this, and I literally just speak it out to the universe, you know. And I will even call out to like my late grandfather and be like, wherever you are, can you please guide me in what I'm doing? So things like that. And weirdly enough, like months later, I'll get weirdly enough, months later, you know, an email will pop up that this is, and it always somehow finds its way, you know. It's not always like delivered fully done. I have to do the work, but the opportunity somehow lends itself in my emails, just right after when I just project it out and I exude it out and I start telling other people that this is the direction that I want to take now, so that also other people know, so that they can place and when that opportunity comes around, you know. Yeah.